You there, exiles, a moment of your time. First of all, Happy New Year, Happy 2025. Today I bring to you my first PoE2 build guide ever, and it is going to be the Blood Blast. We're playing FlameBlast and Blood Mage. Now it has been so much fun watching the entire screen explode. FlameBlast has been one of my favorite skills in Path of Exile, but in PoE1, what happens is when you channel FlameBlast, you stand still, and that is really bad. In PoE2, that's not the case. You can still move, although there's a movement speed penalty, and you can dodge roll out of it, which will also proc the explosion, so that's awesome. There's a lot of pros and cons here. The pros are that map clear tier 15 is really smooth. Even with 100% more life on monsters, the fact that we crit 100% of the time as well just makes everything explode instantly, and it's so satisfying. Now the cons are that we can't really do less recovery maps, especially on bosses, since there's no way to sustain it. We also very susceptible to more stun buildups. And we have to also be really careful when trying to place a combo like what you're seeing here. We have Comet and Frostbomb set up for the Consume Freeze to do a massive amount of damage, and sometimes you can mess it up. So without further ado, let's get into the build. So this is the character right now, and we're sitting at level 90 with resistances pretty much capped except for Chaos, but it's still pretty good. We're gonna go into weapons, equipment, sets, skill gems, and then we're going to do some combo demonstration, skill tree, ascendancy, and maybe a variation that you can do with bleed. And we're going to wrap up with a tier 15 run through, see what happens. So, first off, let's look at the equipment. We're doing a 2-stage setup, so one is fire and one is ice. And the whole deal with this is that we can do some freeze and freeze consume explosion that deals a large amount of damage. And the rest of the equipment is pretty much standard. We don't really have a unique gear or anything fancy like that. Just, some resistances all over, some runes to give more ES, and an amulet with some annoyance. So yeah, pretty much it. And then also the thawing charm, obviously, because we don't like getting frozen. Well, anyway, so this is all the equipment. And the skills look pretty much like this. Now, I don't know if anyone is using a weapon skill at all, because, well, I don't, obviously. But there's the Sigil of Power on the Frost Staff, and Sigil of Power is a buff that will give you more spell damage per stage. So as the more you spend mana, the stages that you'll gain will give you more spell damage. Unlike in PoE1 that gives you lightning damage. And it's like flat lightning, so not like a percentage more spell damage. So it's really cool. We got live remnants from the Blood Mage, obviously, and we are supporting it with the Vitality, Clarity, and Cannibalism. We really need all these regens to be able to sustain in maps. And Bone Cage, that's for escaping. So when there's lots of small but fast enemies, I use Bone Cage to get away because it pins enemies to the ground, and we're supporting it with more pin buildup, more physical damage, and a astral projection. So any Nova skill with astral projection can be cast from range. So awesome. So now we're going to the star of the build, which is FlameBlast. Now we have actually 2 FlameBlast setups, so we're gonna look at both in just a moment. So the first one is the one that I use with the boss. We're supporting it with more chance to critically hit, but with 8 seconds cooldown. So we don't really use this unless we have to, which is, when we fight a boss. And then everything else is just more damage. So less cast speed is fine because we're freezing the boss anyway, so we have all the time in the world to cast. And we have the Consume Freeze to deal 50% more damage. We have the more magnitude of Ignite on frozen targets. And then more area damage, less area of effect with concentrated effect. Now, a really quick note, Ignite and All other damage over time ailments in PoE2, they don't work the same as in PoE1. So let me demonstrate real quick. So you can see the estimated ignite damage per second over here, right? So if I take something like a concentrated effect off, it says specifically more area damage. I take it off and then our ignite damage goes down. So basically any hit damage will contribute to an ailment's damage. So in PoE1, that doesn't happen. If I take this off, the damage over time is the same. So that's the big difference that I first didn't realize. And when I got all of it together, and it's just so satisfying to do this. Now, this damage over here may seem little, but FlameBlast deals 200% more damage per stage, and we have 10 maximum stages. So that's basically 20 times more damage at a maximum stage. So times 20 to these, and it's just an insane amount of damage. Now we got Solar Orb over here with fire exposure. Solar Orb is basically the sun that you summon and it stays there, but enemies that stay close to it are instantly ignited. And we don't really do damage with this thing, but if you ignite an enemy, you're gonna do fire exposure. So that's extra, minus 20% off of fire resistance. We can do strip away over here as well to get a little more fire resistance reduction, but we use it with Frost Bomb, which we'll get into a second. And let's actually take a look at the second FlameBlast. This one, we're using it to clear maps. So first of all, more area of effect, obviously, and more cast speed, and more critical hit chance against enemies that are on full life. So basically, we're just right-clicking in a map and everything explodes. Everything is always at full life at first, obviously, so that's why we're doing this. And our crit chance for this skill is 100%. So, it says 55 over here, but 100% more crit chance, basically 100. So we're always critting no matter what, as long as enemies are in full life. So that's a really important note. And we have Searing Flame, which is a more magnitude of ignite and less damage with hits. Now, this one specifically says that we do less hits but more ignite. So if we take it out, sure, we explode a little more, but, we just want to do a little bit of ignite as well. It's just a little more satisfying. You can kind of support this with anything else, maybe even a +1 fire spell. You could do that as well. And then Arcane Surge, obviously, because we need that cast speed and mana regen. Well, the mana regen is a secondary thing, but it's nice to have anyway. Okay, so going back over here, we have Flammability, obvious choice, Curse, and we have Cursed Effect, more area of effect, but cooldown. We don't really curse that much though, except when we fight a rare or a really tough magic packs, that kind of thing. And then more skill effect duration. I'm still thinking we might take this thing off. We'll see. I don't know yet what I'm gonna replace it with. Maybe Spell Cascade. But then our Spell Cascade is with Frost Bomb over here. Our AoE is huge, but sometimes these overlap and monsters get hit by 2 Frost Bombs, and that contributes to freeze even more. We have less duration on Frost Bomb so that it explodes faster, and Spell Cascade for obvious reasons, 2 more Frost Bombs on the sides, and increase their, increased exposure, not area, sorry. So yeah, the reason we do increased exposure over here is because we want extra freeze build-up. So the more cold damage you do, the more freeze build-up you do as well. Unless, of course, there's a support that says increase or more freeze build-up, which we do have in another skill. So let's move on to the next one. Here's Mana Tempest. We don't really use this once again, except when we're fighting a really tough enemy like the boss. So we empower a spell and gain extra damage as lightning. And right now at level 18, we have 74% of damage as extra lightning. True that it's not fire, but lightning can shock, and when you shock, you do 20% more damage. So it's different from PoE1. PoE1 shock has different kinds of effects, right? So you can show up enemy for 1% or 50%, and those are increased damage taken. But here is more damage taken, and it always starts at 20%. If you have extra shock magnitude, then you're gonna get even more shock effect. So it's really powerful to have. And then we have the comet over here. This thing, we have the less cost because it takes so much mana and life because we're blood mage. So we really need to conserve that much mana and life. And we have spell echo so that we have an extra comet coming down for extra freeze buildup. We have more freeze buildup, and we have penetration to cold resistance because mostly we're using this skill with a boss. We don't have a curse or anything, so this, including that and the strip away on the frost bomb, we're gonna lower the boss's resistance and penetrate whatsoever left of it, or as much as we can. So we're freezing bosses in like 2 casts sometimes, but most of the times is 1 cast, and then we can do our combo right away. And of course we have Green Priest and supported with life recovery from blast because we really need it sometimes, okay? Anyway, this gives us a little more survivability with the energy shield. Okay, so let's actually take a look at what combo we can do over here. So we're gonna move over to the whatever this is. Yeah, so the courtyard. Okay, so as you can see, we got Sigil Power over here and Bone Cage, but this is only for escaping, and we cast it in the distance so that we can get away from some really fast monsters. But basically we got everything set up right here. So we start off with Sigil Power, then go to Frost Bomb, then Comet. So if we do everything in quick succession, we're gonna have Sigil Power up all the way until we do the FlameBlast explosion. And the bosses are frozen pretty much the entire time after Comet was cast. Okay, so we got FlameBlast over here and another one over here with the control pressed down. So my regular right click is the huge FlameBlast for the explosion. And our Solar Orb also gives us more cast speed, so actually we can just blast things really quickly. Now I don't usually do Solar Orb in clearings because that way monsters get their life taken down, which means they're not at full life anymore, so we don't crit them most of the times. I mean, 55% is still a lot, but if we don't crit, the monsters don't die. So I'll refrain from doing this except in maps that has the extra life as energy shield. Okay, so let's look at this. First, lay down the Sigil Power, Frost Bomb, Comet, the boss is frozen, Curse, Solar Orb, Mana Tempest, and Control FlameBlast. So that's the setup for a boss. So as you can see, it takes some practice to be able to get this done correctly, and sometimes even you get panicked and you just mess it up. So that's another thing. It's really bad if you mess up because then it might just cost you your life, basically. But anyway, if you can do that, it's really satisfying. Yeah, and the regular FlameBlast for the clear. So it's all really satisfying. Let's move on to the skill tree and ascendancy. So right out the bat, we got all 8 points, and I gotta admit that I went with a friend and his minion just carried all of my progress. So he was doing the arsonist and it was just crazy how fast he can clear. Oh, and the boss as well. Like the arsonists do so much damage to the boss. But anyway, we got the obvious choice at the beginning for Blood Mage, Life Remnants. You don't really do anything here, so basically it's just better for you to get 2 points at least. So, first off, you can come over here to get some Vitality Siphon or some extra damage as well. If you want, you can do Bleed in the early game, that's fine. So a choice between survivability and damage, but it's really not that impressive over here. I mean, yeah, it's extra damage, sure, but the survivability is much more important. But the star of the build is right over this side. So we got the increased crit damage per 40 life. So as long as we have a lot of life, we're gonna get more crit damage. Well, increased, I'm sorry, that's very important, okay? So I don't know if that means current life or maximum life, because it doesn't say. Some builds or some skills, it actually says your current mana, so I'm guessing it would be the same if it says current life, but it doesn't say here. Well, also doesn't say maximum life, so I don't really know, and I have no way to test it, so I really need to look to the community and see what they've discovered so far. And of course, this thing right here is the most broken thing in the build. So base critical hit chance for spells is 15%. If we take a look at FlameBlast, you're gonna see that the base crit chance is 8%, which is super low. And I can understand that because the skill itself does so much damage if you channel it to the 10th stage. But with this, it just becomes ridiculous. Okay, so in the early game, before you can get to this node over here, or at least before you get your third ascendancy change, you have to go with the skills that has high crit chance by itself, such as Firestorm. It has less clear speed, but it's still pretty comfortable to play because you can just cast Firestorm or actually Solar Orb, which ignites enemies, and then the Firestorm can indeed consume that ignite to rain down an improved Firestorm. So, you know, you cast it and then you just walk around, watch the monsters slowly die, but that's the keyword, slowly die. So it's not as fast as FlameBlast, but it got you through the acts and basically survive it. Okay, and in the early game, I didn't really do crits that much. I went more with the cast speed and some other fire damage over here and there, and a little more survivability. But as soon as I got to this node, I changed the skill tree to look exactly the way you see right now. So, starting off, since we're a blood mage, we come down over here just to get a little more mana regen, life regen, and some extra strength and int. Some more regen, damage taken, recuperates life. I mean, this is all great and everything, but I mean, it's not significant. Maybe I'll change it later. There's a 10 crit chance and some strength and int over here as well, and 10% increased damage, so that's fine. But the thing is, there are some AoE nodes as well as crits over here, so I might just come over and take these as well if I have more points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So at level 96, I could go over here. Oh, actually, no. At level 97, because the next one is going to be this. But anyway, let's go back over here a little bit. So coming out, spell damage, obviously. Mana regen, cast speed, crit over here. This is the first weapon set. So some crit nodes are all first weapon sets, unless, you know, you only have 5 points left. So yeah, that's why we're going with the ordinary skill points over here. We could still spend these with the first weapon set, but then I don't really know right now what we'll do with the second set. Maybe over here to get some more cold penetration, because we don't have any kind of curses on cold. Actually, yeah, that sounds interesting. We might just do that. Anyway, we have the ES over here as well as maximum mana, ES recharge, and some ES over here, and crit over here as well. We have the faster shield recharge. It's really important to grab these nodes because shield recharge in PoE2 is at the baseline slower than PoE1. Much slower. So you really don't want to miss that. Okay, so coming up over here, we got the ES, obviously, and maximum mana, and some AoEs. That's why we got huge AoEs on here with the first FlameBlast. And this is the crit. And Jules, we got the inflict ailments, AoE, and recuperates life is great, increase ES and spell damage. This is not the best roll in any way, but it's corrupted and got 5 mods on it, so that's great. We got these nodes over here, and you're going to notice that there are 2 different weapon sets, and we're going to go over them in a little bit. But let's look at the ordinary ones first. We have the all ally resist and crit damage if you've dealt a critical hit recently. And we're doing 100% crit on map clear, so we get that extra elemental damage. No question. Faster shield recharge again, and shield recharge rate. Another gem, jewels, I'm sorry. Increased spell damage, yes, cast speed, ignite chance, so that's all great. We can change this still, but jewels are really expensive sometimes, and I reckon the one that I'm gonna get to improve this is going to be even more expensive. That's the first weapon set, so we're gonna come back in a few seconds. We got ES over here, and some sun threshold, and percentage increased life mana ES, so that's great. And then we get to this jewel over here. Immune to maim is really, really awesome if you can get that. We got spell damage, ES, crit damage bonus, and mana on kill. So at least one of your jewels really needs a mana on kill, because you can't sustain in maps, okay? So that's really, really important. Now, let's actually look at the 2 sets, okay? So the first set is my fire and crit set. So over here is the crit. And over here is the extra crit chance. Now this physical damage doesn't really do anything, but we get crit chance, and magnitude of damaging ailments such as poison, ignite, and bleed. And here we get the crit chance, crit damage, and magnitude of damaging ailments once again. So these nodes are very, very powerful. Unless you want to get the bleeding from Black Mage as well, this one is really not worth taking. But again, it's the variations that you can do. The next one is fire. Over here we got fire, and fire resistance, extra fire damage, and ignite, magnitude, ignite faster, so that's all great. And the second weapon set is going to be our cold. So we grabbed the entire cold tree because once again we want to be able to do a lot of cold penetration, and you know, whatever, this is great because we don't have anywhere else to go anyway. Freeze buildup, very important. Chill, magnitude of chill, so it's really, really, really good over here. And then we got penetration over here for cold as well, and duration of ailments, so that means you're frozen for a longer period of time as well, and magnitude of non-damaging ailments, so things like chill is getting more magnitude. Increased magnitude. Very important to differentiate between increased and more. Yeah, and I guess that's pretty much it. Oh, by the way, this is our anoint. So we're anointing this amulet with burn away so that we get some fire penetration at least, and ignite magnitude and increased fire damage. By the way, both increased fire damage and magnitude of ignite helps with the ignite damage, okay? But the magnitude of ignite does not increase the fire damage from hit. So it's interesting that if you increase your hit damage, ignite will also increase. Now fire damage alone, that's not a hit, but it's still a generic fire term, so anything having to do with fire damage gets the benefit from that. So yeah, that's the entire tree and ascendancy. Now once again, you can kind of like take this path for a little more damage. I don't know if it's a little or much, but if you get the bleeding into your FlameBlast, I can guarantee you it does a really satisfying amount of damage, but you're losing your survivability in maps. Now, you're not gonna die from regular maps, but sometimes there are some chaos modifiers and some poisons that can really get you through the shield. This makes sure that every flame blast that you do gets you back to full life. Okay? But still, the less recovery maps will give you a hard time. So, best be careful with that. Okay? Now, let's close it off with some playthrough demonstration. So, we have our tier 15 over here. And that's nothing impressive, but we have some delirium effect on it too. So we're gonna go over here. Oh wow, that's nice. There's a breach too. Now, let's take note that I might die because, you know, I get panicked sometimes. But let's see what happens. Alright. Oh. So that's one of the rare monsters? I'm using control FlameBlast. And it still does a lot of damage. And like I said, if you dodge roll while casting, it will proc the explosion. So it gives you a little more survivability. Oh! The fear manifests himself. Now where are you? It's a great time to demonstrate the combo. Jeez, I almost died over there. I didn't get a chance to channel to the full stages. Oh my god, oh my god. Yeah, gotta be careful. Especially these poison mobs. They can hurt you in unimaginable ways. Oh my god. So the smaller FlameBlast is always my control FlameBlast. So like control FlameBlast is basically my boss nuking FlameBlast. It does a lot of damage, so especially if your larger one doesn't instantly kill a mob, then you can just go ahead and curse and boom. Like this one also. There we go. So our nuking skill has 80% crit chance. Although it's not 100, it's really high, so, you know, it's still great to have. And most of the times it does crit. Oh, so the Cruel Bill, let's go. Okay, if we're not careful, we might just die over here. Open up with the regular FlameBlast first. Boom! Exactly, don't run. Alright, let's go! Oh my god. That's not even the full extent of the damage. Well, but still. Got him running, so... Where'd this guy come from? Again? Alright. A final showdown. Boom! And he's dead. Well, apparently the Spectre up there didn't die with it. Anyway, oops. Yeah, we can take the tier 5 or tier 4. The level, what is it, 18? I swear to God, some of these map designs are just not good. I mean, it looks straight, but... yeah. It makes you run around like an idiot, basically. Boom. So, yeah. Just running around, blowing fireworks. Happy New Year! And giving these fireworks to the monsters. And hopefully they don't take this one button build away. Oh, okay, yeah, we got the breach as well. So I just wanna go ahead and boom. We're gonna put down the Sun Orb for the more cast speed. Now there's so much mobs in the breach that it does need the help from the cast speed. Now since the AoE is so large, the mobs outside are not gonna really get hit by the solar orb, and so they're getting crit. And if you see the health bar, that means they're not critting most of the time. Oh my god, oops! Okay, there we go. We just lost a bunch of things, but yep. That's what it was. So anyway, I hope you guys had fun as much as I did. And I'm gonna see you next time. See y'all later.